On this episode of The Capitalist Investor, we are going to talk about the cookie cutter advice that you might hear on TV, on the radio, on a podcast that actually is probably not meant for you. We're going to dive in to a couple things that we see and hear on a day-to-day basis, and we have to constantly debunk. All right, we're going to start our Capitalist Investor podcast. I am missing Derek, and I called to the bullpen. I have Dave Abate with me, longtime friend, colleague, and I always say arguably one of the smartest guys in the office. So I'm glad you're here, man. How you doing?
Thanks for the warm welcome, Tony. Glad to be back.
Absolutely, man. All right, so today we are going to talk about, the way I kind of say this is that, you know, Dave and I and Derek are quarterbacks of a relationship, right? Because we don't pick the stocks, we don't do the taxes, we don't build the plan. Well, we probably build part of the plan and do a lot of reviewing of the plan. But there are people in their specific roles that are experts, and it's us to understand everybody's role so that when a client needs something, we know exactly. We could probably diffuse it right away, but if it's something a little bit more precise, we can go to, you know, Steve to do the tax projections, or the investment team. Hey, why are we in these stocks and not those, right? Like, we can ask specific questions to the experts, but we generally have a really good understanding why we're in something, not doing something, whatever we may be doing. But where some of the things that we do get, and there's nothing wrong with this, but sometimes we have a client saying, hey, Tony, I heard this on TV, or I heard Jim Cramer say this. And, you know, if you don't know who Jim Cramer is, he's been on CNBC for years and years and years and years. And he's the buy, sell guy, right? He's just talking stocks. He's been on TV so long, I'm pretty sure he might own everything at this point, or has owned something he has to come up with content.
He's a household name, right?
Yeah, it's like, holy cow, man. Like, what stock haven't you really looked at and buy, sell, or hold? I don't know. But those I guess the way that they are presented is that people need something to talk about, or they're not going to have a show, or they're not going to have a podcast, or they're not going to be able to get notoriety. And maybe sometimes people just say stuff to say stuff, or maybe their agenda is a little bit hidden. So, Dave, help me understand.
I think it's a lot of those things. Like, you're hitting the nail on the head here. Like, TV, media, like, it's the entertainment business.
Correct.
Right? If you go out there and give kind of the we'll call it chicken noodle soup, like the boring recipe of like what you need to do to be successful, not many people are going to watch your show.
Right. Well, I had the conversation with, somebody I was meeting for the first time, and they're working with kind of a person locally that is known for stock picks on radio. Like he's been on the radio for a long time, and all he does is talk about stocks. And, you know, it's kind of like I was trying to put myself in that guy's shoes. Like, man, how many weeks can he talk about NVIDIA? Or AI stocks? Like, there happens to be 490 other stocks out there, not the 10 that are driving performance in the index, right? So, like, again, what sometimes people talk about and say is just we just happen to need it, want it, or, you know, or they need to talk about it to come up with something new.
It's a hyperbolic world. If you're not speaking in extremes, you're not getting attention, you're not getting the eyeballs, you're not getting the clicks, right. And that means you're not getting the revenue, right? So what we're going to do on this episode is talk about essentially like the three things that Dave and I kind of hear more times than not. You know, we hear all kinds of ideas and things from clients on, like, hey, would this idea work in our plan, or why do we do this and not that, or why do we do that, you know, whatever that might sound like. So I'm gonna start with like annuities. So annuities have their place. They're not for everybody, and they're definitely not for all of your money.
right? Because they have a illiquid component, and they also have, they're built in a way to provide a particular rate of return, because annuity companies don't take your money and invest in the stock market. They are doing all kinds of crazy things to generate guaranteed income. So whether they're doing call options, they might even own like real estate or get into a venture where there are guaranteed money. And then from those guarantees, they can calculate money to give you, the annuity holder, while they still make money. So a lot of annuities that I have worked with our investment team, what I would say is that the rate of return on a long period of time for an annuity falls somewhere between a stock and a bond. Okay, they're not going to perform like a stock, and we hope that they perform similar, if not better than a bond, and with a lot less volatility of both of those components. But I do hear people, they'll come up and say, "Hey, Tony, I just heard about this annuity. It's paying like 8-9%. And I'm like, "No, it's not." And I know this for a fact, because if it was, I would know about it and you'd be in it. It'd be that simple. And as soon as I have to start, I always ask questions, layering questions of like, okay, 8-9%. How do they pay that? What is it doing? Like, where did you hear this information? I start connecting some dots, and that is easily something that is positioned on what an income annuity, right? Like you put your money in, but then the company is going to guarantee you an income rider. Like we do that quite a bit for our clients to give us another layer of guaranteed income in retirement. But the headline number that is always positioned for these is how much does it earn every year? And I always call that, there's your actual money in these type of income annuities, and then there's this, I don't want to call it fake money, but this income value that's actually not your money. They make that money grow so that they can guarantee you an income stream at any time down the road, a deferred option. And they're guaranteed, and they'll even illustrate it. But they have to make that money grow, and it might be at 8 or 9%, but that's not your actual money. It's the value that they're going to base the guaranteed income from you.
So Tony, definitely like complicated investment vehicles that you need to have a full understanding of to know how they fit into someone's life, right?
Correct.
Now I'm willing to bet if you put on the radio in the next hour and you flip through the dials, and they have dials anymore, but anyways, you flip through the channels, you will hear an advertisement for a fixed indexed annuity. There's some usual suspects that will tell you they're risk-free, and the next market crash is around the corner, and you need to put all your assets in this vehicle, this magic vehicle that will protect you and grow, like you said, 7, 8, 9%, and everyone smiles and the story ends. The part that they leave out is it's not quite that simple. There's a place for them, but there are also risks related to these investments, specifically liquidity.
Liquidity is the biggest one.
And specifically purchasing power, the loss of purchasing power, right? So if you have all your money in this magic bean vehicle, there's a chance that that initial payout amount, right, isn't going to keep up with inflation.
Right. I mean, the liquidity side is most annuities are, at least mostly 10 years, but you can find some that are maybe 5 or 7 years, things like that. So there is a liquidity component, or a lockup period, right? Duration. But you can always get 10% out penalty free, or if it is an income annuity, has an income rider on it, you can always start the income. And then, like you said, it's you're capping yourself. Like, these things are designed based on what less risk the insurance company can invest your money while they still make a profit. So again, they are doing some things that they're not putting your money in the stock market. They are definitely not doing that.
Exactly right. And it goes back to the headline of like understanding the growth rate you personally need to make your financial plan work. Right. That's the key to this game.
We plug these into the planning software to see the sizing. First, if it's appropriate. If it is it a growth annuity or is it an income annuity? And then what the sizing should be. How much do we put in here? Because again, we understand if there's a liquidity issue, we putting more than 50% of your money into something like this is a very risky venture, because you're not gonna get probably the growth that you could or that you might need in your financial plan, and then the liquidity part. So that's one thing. So the next thing that we hear about, and this one, Dave and I've actually seen this firsthand, and we had to really roll up our sleeves to debunk. But there's some attorneys that go around town, and again, it's not everybody, and there's places for this idea, but there's attorneys out there that they specialize on Medicaid planning. And my high level interpretation of what they do is that they'll do a presentation. They will build it off of the fear of losing all your money because you have exorbitant amount of medical bills, and you will go on to Medicaid. They will take everything from you, and you're leaving your surviving spouse or family with, in destitute. And essentially, when you talk to somebody and maybe all their money is in an IRA, well, the solution that some of these and most of these people doing these presentations are saying, hey, you need to liquidate your traditional IRA and put it into this trust, and the trust will go into an annuity that is Medicaid protected. So not only are we prepaying the tax in like taking out all of your IRA money in 1 year. You know how much income that is? You know how much taxes you're going to pay unnecessarily to do that is one thing. And then we're using an annuity that is probably not it might protect your money, but it's probably not going to grow. It is probably not designed to be it's probably not the best annuity on the market for performance. Those are two things that I have seen and I have known. And when Dave and I see this, we immediately say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, like if you take all of your money and do this, and we take it out of the investment strategies, cut the account in half because you're going to owe all this money in taxes. Your plan goes from a highly successful plan to failing. Like we've seen this. Our plan went from an 80% Monte Carlo to 30%, and you're wrecking your plan for something that may not even happen. You might not have a long-term care event. But you will need your money when you are 85, 90, or 95 years old.
It feels like the medical equivalent of malpractice in terms of the advice some of these attorneys are peddling. And to your point, yes, it's the analogy is you may be like fixing one future potential problem. We know for sure this is going to happen for some folks, but you're creating a host of other problems. So it's eye-opening when this stuff comes across our desk.
Yeah.
Fortunately, most of the time our clients use this as a sounding board. They bring this play to the huddle.
Yeah.
We take a look at it and like, hey, here's what this looks like. In the grand scheme of things of what we're trying to accomplish, it's not necessarily the right play call at this point in time.
Yeah. I would say like if you are presented with this idea and it does sound like a good idea. Like, again, a lot of clients have come to us and say, hey, this is what I heard. Like, is this what I should be doing? And Dave and I, again, immediately start building the plan, which it typically ruins. And the plan, we're planning for something that might not happen. You might not have a long-term care event, right? And then I also did a presentation with the one attorney that I sincerely trust, and he hates these guys, like the guys out there doing these presentations that have a law office and a financial firm in the same building, and they are we did a presentation for our clients on like, hey, this is what you might hear, and this is why it's a bad idea. And that's the first. So not only would Dave and I build the plan, but then we take it to an, what do you call them? Subject matter expert.
Yes.
And we take that to the attorney that we work with and say, hey, here's their outline of accounts. Like what could we do without blowing up their plan?
And to that point, like we understand too that life unfolds differently for everyone, right? When you're in the throes of this long-term care, like you can see it kind of happening, you're in the middle of it. There's another level of urgency. We get that. It's called crisis planning, and there's still some tools and some levers you can pull that can help you keep your retirement plan intact, maybe for the survivor in the relationship or the non-impacted. So I guess the biggest takeaway is when you see this stuff, if you're a client of ours, please bring it to us before you sign on any lines that are dotted, because you may go down a path that's just not good for your future.
Right. So that I can't say it any better, Dave. And then the next thing is the Cramer effect, right? Like I'm using him as a person, right? But there's a lot of them out there. Hey, I heard about this hot stock. I heard about, hey, I should put all my money in gold, or hey, crypto. What do you think about that? Those are all just examples. We can have a whole show on each one of those hot stocks, cryptos, gold, commodities. The biggest thing with that is it's not that you can't have them. It's understanding your situation and making sure that we size the I'll call them alternative investments or alternative investment ideas appropriately. So I always use this analogy when I was teaching like our educational classes, is that your planning process should always start with your goals. What are your goals? What do you want to do? What does retirement look like? Then we build the strategies to go around it. The investment strategies, the tax strategies, are there Roth conversion strategies? What are the strategies? And then we start figuring out what the tools are to fulfill the strategies. And I use the one analogy of baking a pie. So like every Thanksgiving, it's my job, my particular job to build or to make the apple pie. Right? That's my key component. And so I know my goal is to make the apple pie. Well, the recipe's the strategy.
But Tony, I want to give you pumpkin spice.
Well, hang on, Dave. Hang on. I'm getting there. The goal is to make the apple pie. The next thing is like I got to go grab the recipe because it's going to tell me how to do it. Right? Those are the strategies. So I need flour, sugar, dough, a pie sheet, all these things. I need these things. I need the oven to be at this temperature. Well, the tools, those are the actual ingredients. I need the sugar. I need the apples. I need the dough. I need all this stuff. And if I were to walk into my pantry and there's a bunch of chocolate chips staring me in the face, guess what I'm not making? I'm not making an apple pie, right? So we need to, we can definitely add tools that make sense. But sometimes, again, we talked about it earlier in the show, is like, maybe somebody's just saying something to grab your attention, right? There's nothing wrong with owning gold. It's an all-time high and it's continuing to launch off. We've owned it. We don't own it because it is in such a stratosphere of where it has never been before. It's actually a very risky investment at this point. Same thing with crypto. I don't know. It's highly talked about. There's a lot of money in it invested. But what if it disappears tomorrow? It's an electronic currency. You can't even hold it. You just got to believe that you own it.
And you're exactly right, Tony. And I love your food analogy. You're making me hungry.
Yeah.
But what I would say is like say someone needs this apple pie or that's the recipe. These I'll call them satellite ideas. They're not necessarily all bad. Maybe they can enhance the pie, like if we size them properly. So what I mean by that is, maybe there's whipped cream we bring to the table. Maybe a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Maybe we say, hey, what do you think about warming that apple pie up in the microwave for 30 seconds? Like, there are things that could enhance the apple pie, some of these ideas, as long as we put him into the context of the entire goal.
Yeah, I can put like those little like crumbs on, like the
crumb top,
the sugary crumb tops on top. You know, like you said, ice cream or whipped cream or whatever you want to do, right? So we can add that, but to have it the base of, you know, the whole investment strategy is a whole different ball game. So we need, like, whenever somebody says crypto, all right, great, could be a great idea. We have an administration. The Trump administration is very pro crypto. So I assume that it's not, you know, that we don't have somebody that's talking against it all the time. And there's a good possibility that it continues to melt up. But what if it gets cut in half? What if it doesn't work out? What if it changes? What if Bitcoin is not the thing and Ethereum or XRP is? Like, there's all these other cryptos that are trying to gain, you know, notoriety. So again, like, how much do we want to own so that if it goes to zero tomorrow, you're not going to lose any sleep?
That's exactly right. We got to size it right.
Correctly. So those are just some examples. So we have to be careful what we hear, what the angles are, from just, we're bombarded with information constantly. And it's hard to not listen, and it's hard not to question, is it a good idea or not? But, you know, if you're working with, you know, a financial advisor who has a team, bring that idea to them before you implement, because then they will figure out, does it fit? Does it not fit? If it does, what's the sizing? Where do the funds come from? How do you implement it so that, again, if it becomes a bad idea, you're not overly exposed?
That's right. You said it perfectly.
All right. So that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments on this episode, you know, leave it in the comment section. You know, you can shoot us an email at info@swpconnect.com to ask questions or show ideas, whatever it may be. And but outside of that, we're good. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.